Welcome to Book Central's Inside the Pages podcast. I'm your host, Abbie, and today I'm thrilled to be here with Steve Barker, the author of the best-selling book On the Other Hoof. Steve Barker, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Abbie. It's great to be here.
Let's jump right into it. Could you give our listeners a summary of On the Other Hoof and what inspired you to write it?
Sure. On the Other Hoof imagines a world in which the food chain is reversed, and animals become the ones in control. The book explores the moral implications of meat consumption and how our relationship with animals might change in such a scenario. I was inspired to write the book after reading about the environmental impact of meat production, and how it contributes to issues like deforestation and climate change. I wanted to explore this topic from a unique perspective and offer readers a thought-provoking and entertaining read.
It's definitely an interesting concept. One of the book's central themes seems to be the moral implications of meat consumption. Could you elaborate on that a bit more and share your stance on vegetarianism?
Absolutely. Meat consumption raises many ethical questions, particularly around animal welfare and the environmental impact of meat production. On the Other Hoof, I wanted to flip the script and imagine how animals might view us as food instead. As for my personal stance on vegetarianism, it's a complex issue that requires a nuanced approach. While I don't think everyone needs to be a vegetarian, I think it's essential to be conscious of where our food comes from and try to reduce our meat consumption where possible.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. Could you read a selected passage from the book for our listeners, perhaps a particularly impactful section highlighting the book's message?
Sure, let me find the passage. Blossom's heart pounded against her ribs as she crouched in the dense underbrush, her large brown eyes scanning the heavily fortified farm. The full moon cast an eerie glow over the desolate landscape, illuminating her path. With every rustle of leaves, her senses heightened, her adrenaline surging through her veins. Silently, she darted between shadows, careful not to disturb the snarling guard dogs. Her hooves navigated the treacherous obstacles with practiced precision, evading loose floorboards and creaking staircases. The heavy stench of decayed flesh filled the air, mingling with the anticipation that lay heavy on her heart. Pushing her fear aside, Blossom peered through a rusted chain-link fence, her heart sinking. Rows of haggard humans, their eyes sunken and souls broken, were huddled together. Prisoners. Once deemed valuable, they were now a source of meat. And she, a lowly heifer, was their only hope. She steeled herself, pushing forward with a determination she didn't know she had. The weight of their freedom rested on her shoulders alone. The farm was a labyrinth of corridors and watchtowers, each step a potential death sentence. The moon's glow mocked her, casting elongated shadows that danced at her feet, whispering of danger at every turn. A small beam of light cut through the night, guiding her towards an unlocked door. The hinges screamed in protest as it swung open. Her heart skipped a beat, fearing they were discovered. But the night held its breath, her secret safe for now. As she approached the humans, her heart shattered. Their pleading eyes mirrored her desperation and hope. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Unwavering determination met the fear that lingered in her eyes. Blossom extended a gentle hoof, urging them to rise, to believe. Together, they surged forward in a desperate race for freedom, their steps muffled by fear. Each obstacle conquered fueled their faith, their longing for a new dawn. Blossom's heart thundered in her chest, her spirit unyielding. With a primal scream, she echoed their defiance into the night, her courage radiating like the moon above. In that moment, there was no turning back.
That was powerful. Thank you for sharing. It really drives home the message behind the book. Speaking of the creative process, could you share some insights into how you developed the concept for On the Other Hoof and any challenges you faced in conveying such a complex and controversial topic through your writing?
I developed the concept by asking myself, what if the tables were turned? What if humans were the ones who were hunted rather than hunters? From there, I started to explore different scenarios and how they might play out. As for challenges, one of the biggest ones was trying to strike a balance between entertainment and education. I wanted the book to be thought-provoking and to raise important questions, but I also wanted it to be an enjoyable read that people would be excited to pick up.
You definitely succeeded in doing both. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about On the Other Hoof?
I would just like to say that I hope the book encourages readers to think more deeply about the food system and our relationship with animals. Whether you're a meat eater or a vegetarian, there are essential questions we need to ask ourselves about where our food comes from and how it impacts the world around us.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us today, Steve. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Abbie. It was great to be here.
And that wraps up another episode of Books Central Inside the Pages. Thank you, lovely listeners, for tuning in today. Remember to grab a copy of On the Other Hoof by Steve Barker. Until next time, happy reading.